Hi, you're on the Reddit Confessions channel, where silence finally speaks. Today's story starts in the middle of a sentence and ends in the middle of a crowd. Let's begin. So what's it gonna be, huh? Stay or go? Her voice echoed like a dropped glass in a silent room. The kind of voice that's been waiting months to detonate. And there I was, standing in the center of our friends, her coworkers, random strangers, holding a paper plate of cake and feeling like I had just been shoved off a cliff. That wasn't how the night was supposed to go. We were supposed to be celebrating her work promotion. She said it was just a rooftop thing. Casual, small, nothing big. I was in a wrinkled button-down she ironed that morning, nodding through conversations I wasn't part of. I didn't know half the people there. They knew her, though. Everyone always knew her. I stood near the drink table, listening to a guy in salmon-colored pants tell a story about surfing in Costa Rica. Meanwhile, I watched her laughing across the rooftop with that same guy from her phone's lock screen, the one she told me was just an office buddy, his hand far too familiar with her back for my comfort. But I didn't make a scene. I never do. I stood there quiet, nodding, pretending. That's kind of my specialty, pretending I'm not dying inside. Then came the speech. She climbed up onto a bench with a glass of champagne in hand, barefoot now, spinning a little from the wine. Everyone looked at her like she was the main act. I was still picking the strawberry off my cake when she tapped the glass with a spoon. I want to thank everyone for being here, she began, grinning like she just won an award. You've all been amazing, supporting me, pushing me, believing in me. I'm finally where I belong. The crowd clapped. I smiled small. Then she turned to me, and to the man who, well, let's be honest, who's never quite figured out what to do with someone like me. Laughter. Nervous laughter. I felt my stomach drop. I looked around. No one stopped her. No one even looked uncomfortable. She kept going. Babe, she said, and I swear she looked through me. You've had years to figure it out. I've asked. I've waited. But I'm tired. So, I'm giving you a choice. Right here. Right now. In front of everyone. She raised her glass, mocking. Stay or go. I looked at her. Then at the crowd. Then at the champagne in her hand. I didn't say a word. I placed the plate of cake on the table, buttoned my jacket, and walked toward the stairs. I didn't look back. And that's how 12 years ended. Not with a fight, not with a goodbye, but with silence. The strangest thing about walking away in front of a crowd is how quiet it actually is. You'd think someone would stop you, say something, chase after you. But they didn't. They just watched me go like I was background noise leaving the room. No one called out. No one even whispered. They just turned their heads back toward her, the star of the night, like I had never existed in the first place. I don't remember walking down the stairs. My legs were moving, but my mind was frozen. There was this hollow sound in my ears, like wind rushing through an empty tunnel. I reached the street and just stood there, looking at nothing. I checked my phone out of habit. No messages. Not even from her. She always texted things like, "You good?" if I left early. Not this time. I started walking. No destination. Just movement. I left my car parked 2 blocks away, but I couldn't bring myself to get in. I felt like if I sat down, I'd fall apart. So I just kept going. Past the bars with laughing people. Past the couples holding hands. Past a guy playing guitar on the corner. I couldn't hear the music. At one point, I stopped outside a convenience store and stared at my reflection in the glass. I looked normal, like nothing had changed. But inside, it felt like someone had kicked a hole through my chest. My heart wasn't broken, it was just gone. Missing. I kept replaying the moment in my head. Her voice. The smirk. The way she raised that glass like it was a joke. Like I was the joke. Did she plan it? Was it spontaneous? Was she testing me? Hoping I'd make some grand declaration, fall to my knees in front of all those people, and beg her to stay? If she was, she didn't know me at all. The next morning, I woke up in my brother's guest room, still in the same clothes, with my phone buzzing on the floor. For messages. 3 from her. 1 from an unknown number. Her first message was short. You left. The second was a little longer. You really just walked out like that? The third. Well, that one said everything. Guess that answers it. The message from the unknown number? A photo. Blurry, taken at the rooftop party. It was her, sitting in Jonah's lap, his arm around her waist, her head tilted back in laughter. It was time-stamped 1:12 a.m., less than an hour after I walked out. I didn't reply. What was there to say? The first thing I did that morning, even before brushing my teeth, was delete her number from my phone. Not because I hated her. No, that would have been easier. I deleted it because I knew if I saw her name light up on my screen again, I'd answer. And I couldn't afford that. Not after the look in her eyes that night. Not after the photo. Not after the silence that followed my exit like a shadow I couldn't shake. I sat in my brother's kitchen, wrapped in a blanket like some kind of sad burrito, sipping lukewarm coffee that tasted like burnt guilt. He didn't ask questions. He just handed me a bagel and said, "You look like you got run over by a wedding." I wanted to laugh, but I couldn't even manage a smile. My mouth was dry, my eyes heavier than they'd ever felt. I didn't sleep. I just stared at the ceiling all night, thinking about all the ways I let this happen. I started remembering things. Strange little moments that hadn't seemed important at the time. Like the new perfume she wore that she never mentioned. Or how she started locking her phone, then acting offended when I asked why. The sudden gym obsession. The fact that she stopped wearing her wedding ring to work because it got in the way of typing. Typing what exactly? And then the kicker, our anniversary. 3 weeks ago. I made dinner. Candles. Her favorite pasta. Even got that weird imported wine she once claimed was like drinking vacation. She came home an hour late, barely touched her plate, and said she was too tired to talk. That night, I sat on the couch alone while she scrolled through her phone in bed. I told myself it was just stress. Maybe I was the one being too needy. Maybe I was the problem. Turns out, I wasn't the only one thinking that. That afternoon, I got a DM on Instagram from someone named Taylor. A girl I didn't know, whose profile was private, but her message hit like a freight train. "Hey, I don't know if this is crossing a line, but I think you should know your wife's been seeing Jonah for a while now. My sister works with them, and, well, people talk. I'm sorry." I stared at the message for a full 10 minutes. Then I clicked on her profile, just to make sure she was real. She was. Tagged in photos, mutual friends, everything. This wasn't a troll. It was just reality. I wrote back, "Thank you. That's it. Nothing more. Because what else do you say when a stranger has more loyalty to you than your own wife?" By sunset, the apartment I shared with Daphne didn't feel like home anymore. I didn't go back. I couldn't. My brother offered to let me crash for a while, and I didn't argue. I felt like a man who had just watched his entire identity dissolve in the rearview mirror. Who was I, if not her husband? Who was I, outside of being her doormat? And then, just before midnight, she called. I let it ring, and then I let it die. Because for once, I wasn't the one begging to be seen. The call she made at midnight wasn't the last. By the next morning, there were 5 more. Then texts. Then voice messages. Her tone kept changing, first confused, then angry, then oddly sweet, like nothing had happened. Like I hadn't been humiliated in front of a rooftop full of strangers, like she hadn't climbed into Jonah's lap while I was still on the street trying to remember how to breathe. I didn't respond, but I listened. One voicemail in particular stood out. Her voice was shaky, either from tears or wine, probably both. "I thought you'd fight for me," she said. "You just walked away. That's not love, Elwood. That's cowardice." Cowardice. That word stuck in my teeth all day. It echoed while I sat in my car, parked in front of our building, but never going in. It looped while I picked at a sandwich I couldn't eat and pretended to scroll social media at a cafe I used to love. I wanted to scream, or cry, or punch something. But I just sat there, motionless, numb, still the same guy who folds towels by size and alphabetizes the spice rack. Was it cowardice that made me walk away without a word? Or was it finally, after years of pushing my pain down to make space for her, the first act of self-respect I'd ever managed? By that afternoon, she'd moved on to full guilt mode. Texts like, "Can we talk like adults?" and "You know I didn't mean it like that," popped up on my lock screen. I didn't open them. I didn't need to. I could hear her voice in my head, rehearsed and polished, always one sentence away from making me feel like everything was my fault. I went for a walk to clear my head, something I hadn't done in a long time without her beside me, narrating every passing dog or complaining about the cold. It felt weird being alone. Not bad, just unfamiliar. Like I had to learn how to exist without orbiting someone else's gravity. That night, I finally unlocked my laptop and checked our shared documents. Not for closure, but because my name was still on everything. Rent, utilities, streaming services. I needed to start untangling myself from the life we built like a web I didn't realize I was trapped in. Then I found it. A folder called Client Files, Private. tucked between invoices and design drafts, right on our shared Google Drive. I don't know what made me click it. Maybe instinct. Maybe spite. Maybe some version of myself that still hadn't learned to stop bleeding for her. Inside were photos. Dozens. Some professional looking, others clearly taken on a phone. But they weren't work-related. They were of Jonah. Jonah in hotel rooms. Jonah at restaurants I'd never been to. Jonah smiling on the same beach we honeymooned on 5 years ago. The same damn towel, even. And in one of them, her feet were in the corner of the frame. Red toenail polish. The same shade she wore the night of her girls' trip last spring. The betrayal wasn't just emotional. It was logistical, planned, layered. She hadn't fallen into Jonah's arms out of frustration. She'd been building her exit behind my back while I was still bringing her morning coffee and apologizing for things I didn't do. And now, I was the one being blamed for leaving? Cowardice? No, she just didn't like that I finally stood up and didn't ask her for permission. 2 days passed without a single reply from me, and that's when her tone truly changed. The call stopped. The guilt flipped into fury. She sent one final message, a long paragraph, not even punctuated properly, like it was typed with shaking hands and no breath. It started with, "I don't even know who you are anymore," and ended with, "Maybe Jonah was right about you." That last sentence hit me like a nail through the chest. Not because it hurt, but because it confirmed what I had suspected all along. They had been talking about me, comparing notes, making jokes, turning my life into a backstage conversation while I played the fool on stage. That night, I slept better than I had in weeks. Not peacefully, but at least honestly. There were no more what-ifs, or maybe she didn't mean it. The fog had lifted, and what I saw in its place was horrifyingly clear. I had spent the last several years loving someone who viewed me as a placeholder, a backup, a warm body that folded her laundry and paid the rent on time while she daydreamed about someone who gave her butterflies and apparently took her on weekend trips under fake client meetings. Still, I couldn't help feeling hollow. I wasn't angry the way you're supposed to be. I wasn't smashing plates or burning photos. I was just quiet, worn out, like someone who had survived a fire, only to realize everything inside them had turned to ash. I missed the illusion of her. The version of Daphne I thought I knew. The one who used to laugh at my dumb jokes and send me random "I miss you" texts when I was working late. But maybe those were lies, too. Or worse. Maybe they were real, but temporary. Disposable. Like I had an expiration date, and she'd just been waiting for the clock to run out. On the third day, I finally got a message from someone I hadn't expected. Her sister, Clara. It was short. Just, "I didn't know it was that bad. I'm sorry. She's spiraling." Spiraling. That word made me pause. For a second, a brief, stupid second, I imagined her sitting in our apartment, crying, surrounded by guilt. But then I remembered the photo. The beach towel. The laughter. The fact that she didn't call after I walked away. She waited until someone told her I hadn't come back. Until the silence got louder than her pride. I didn't reply to Clara, but I did something else. I packed up my things, not from her place, but from storage. The box of things I had shoved into a closet when she moved in. Things I had hidden to make room for her life. Books she didn't like. Photos she never asked about. My guitar, which she once joked made me look like a sad high schooler trying to impress girls at a campfire. That one stung more now than it did then. I looked at each item like it was a piece of me I had willingly buried for her comfort. And I realized something terrifying. I had been disappearing long before I walked away from that rooftop. Daphne didn't erase me. She just finished the job I started. I didn't expect to see her again. Honestly, I thought she'd just vanish into her curated life with Jonah. The rooftop parties, the filtered photos, the hollow affirmations about growth and choosing yourself. But Daphne wasn't the type to leave a story unfinished. Not if she didn't control the last word. And definitely not if she looked bad in the ending. So when she showed up at my brother's place 4 days after the rooftop incident, I shouldn't have been surprised. But I was. Not because she came, but because of how she looked. Not devastated, not broken, not even remorseful. She was composed. Almost too composed. Like someone walking into a meeting they thought they could control. I was on the porch, coffee in hand, wearing the same hoodie I'd had since college. The one she always made fun of. She stepped out of a car I didn't recognize. Wearing a white blazer like this was a business pitch. No makeup, no tears. Just that same air of confidence that used to impress me and now felt like a dagger. "Elwood," she said, like we were old co-workers bumping into each other at a grocery store. I didn't answer. I just watched her approach, my fingers gripping the mug tighter than I realized. "I didn't come here to fight," she said. I wanted to talk. Like two adults. Like two people who've shared years of life." I should have walked inside, closed the door, told her she had forfeited her right to conversations when she stood on that rooftop and made me an exhibit in her little emotional showcase. But I didn't, because I'm still Elwood. Still the guy who waits, who listens, who gives people the floor even when he's already fallen through it. She sat on the porch step, like she used to when we first moved in together. Back then, we'd watch the sunset and talk about our ridiculous bucket lists. Back when we believed in things. "I messed up," she said. "I got lost in the excitement. I thought I wanted something new. Jonah was. It was never real. It was a distraction." I stayed silent. She reached into her bag and pulled out a small envelope. "This is everything. The passwords, the bank accounts, my part of the rent. I'm not trying to win you back. I want to do the right thing." That word, right, made something snap in me. I looked at her, and for the first time, I didn't see the woman I loved. I saw the woman who used me as a placeholder until something shinier came along. I saw someone who burned down our life and now wanted credit for sweeping the ashes into a neat little pile. "You already did the right thing," I finally said. "You ended it. I just finished what you started." Her face fell for a split second, but she caught herself. "So that's it?" she asked. "You're just walking away?" I smiled. A real one, small but sure. "No, Daphne. I already walked. You're just catching up." She left the envelope on the step and walked back to the car. No hug, no tears, no apology worth remembering. Just the quiet click of the car door shutting and the low hum of the engine fading down the street. And just like that, the chapter closed. But the story? Not even close to over. For a week after that porch conversation, I lived in a strange in-between. Not quite angry, not quite healed, just floating. The kind of state where everything feels quiet, but nothing feels calm. I still woke up early like I used to when she was around, half expecting to hear her heels clicking in the hallway, half hoping I wouldn't. The mornings were colder, not because the weather had changed, but because her absence hung in the air like fog. The envelope she left sat on the kitchen table untouched. My brother kept asking if I was going to open it, but I always said the same thing. Eventually. Truth was, I didn't want what was inside. I didn't care about the bank info or her share of the rent. What I really wanted was something she'd never given me. Honesty, without a performance. Instead, what I got was a visit from someone else entirely. One evening, while I was out getting groceries, just eggs, milk, and some dumb frozen pizza I didn't even want, I came back to find a familiar car parked out front. Jonas. He was leaning against the hood like he belonged there, arms crossed, sunglasses on despite the fact it was nearly dark. I stopped halfway up the walk. I didn't speak. Neither did he, at first. "I'm not here to fight," he said finally, voice calm in that overly rehearsed way, like someone who practiced this speech in the mirror. "I just thought maybe we should talk." I stared at him, silent. His button-down was ironed, his cologne obnoxious, and his confidence unearned. But what caught me off guard was that he looked uncomfortable. Not cocky, not smug, just tense. Almost like he regretted being there. Almost. "She's a mess," he said after a beat. "Keeps saying she made a mistake. Keeps bringing your name up. You still mean something to her, man." I let out the smallest laugh. Not because it was funny, but because it was pathetic. "She meant something to me," I said, eyes locked on him. "But I wasn't enough for her when it mattered. So why does it matter now?" Jonah shifted. "Look, I didn't come to defend her. And I'm not trying to rub it in. Honestly, I didn't know it was going to go that far. We were stupid. It wasn't supposed to be anything serious. But it was serious enough to hide." I shot back. "To plan. To lie. To let me play husband while you played backup." He nodded. Slowly. Quietly. And for a split second, I almost saw a flicker of remorse. Almost. "She's moving out," he said. "She's not staying in the apartment." I shrugged. She already moved out of the marriage long before that. Jonah didn't argue. He just reached into his pocket, pulled out a folded note, and held it out. "She asked me to give you this." I didn't take it. "Tell her I said goodbye," I muttered, turning toward the door. "She'll never stop trying, you know," he added behind me. "People like her, They always come back when the attention fades. I paused, one hand on the doorknob, then looked back at him. I'm not waiting. And then I closed the door. I didn't need her letter. I didn't need his apology. I didn't need any more rehearsed performances from people who only cared when I finally stopped caring. What I needed, for the first time in a very long time, was peace. And for once, I think I finally found it. It's strange how healing doesn't come like thunder, loud and immediate. It comes like rain at night. Quiet, slow, steady. It crept up on me in the most unexpected ways. A week after Jonah's visit, I found myself laughing, really laughing, at a dumb TV show I used to love but stopped watching because she called it background noise for boring people. A small thing, but it hit me. I hadn't just lost Daphne. I had lost pieces of myself, tiny, unnoticeable pieces, in the name of keeping someone else satisfied. And now, they were coming back. I moved into a new apartment. Nothing fancy, a little smaller, but it was mine. I painted the walls a color she once said would make the place look depressing. I bought a record player. I started playing guitar again, badly, but loudly. I even adopted a dog, a wiry rescue mutt with one ear that won't stand up straight and a bark that's far too big for his body. I named him Lucky, because somehow I am. Daphne didn't reach out again. Not directly, anyway. I heard from Clara that she moved to a different city, started a new job, posted a cryptic quote on social media about lessons learned and chapters closed. I didn't roll my eyes. I didn't scoff. I just felt nothing. And it was beautiful. It's easy to believe the person who hurt you holds the key to your healing. That if they just said the right words, or finally felt the right kind of guilt, things would make sense. But that's not how it works. The truth is, closure isn't something they give you. It's something you give yourself. And I gave it. Not with a confrontation, not with a tear-filled scene, but with silence. With distance. With finally choosing me. I'll never get those years back. But I don't want to erase them either. They made me slower to speak, quicker to feel. They taught me how easily love can blur into self-sacrifice, and how important it is to recognize the difference. I don't regret loving her. I only regret that I did it for so long without loving myself, too. So no, there was no revenge. No big dramatic twist. Just a quiet return to myself. And somehow, that's the most powerful ending I could have asked for. If you've ever had to walk away without a dramatic goodbye, just to save yourself, you're not alone. Comment below, what moment in this story struck you the hardest? Have you ever been given a choice that wasn't really a choice at all? Let's talk about it in the comments. Thanks for watching. And remember, the most powerful silence is the one that sets you free. This has been Reddit Confessions.